All right. Derek, do you want to do the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, call the regular meeting for May 23rd, 2023. Start with roll call, please.
Here?
Councilwoman Piper,
Here.
Councilman Jackson, Councilman Durant,
Here.
Councilman James,
Here.
Here. Mr. Jackson, prior to the meeting, had given me notice that he was going to miss tonight. His son was being given an academic award, and he was attending there. I would entertain a motion for an excused or unexcused absence for Mr. Jackson.
I would make a motion to excuse Councilman Jackson.
Second.
Motion by Councilman James, seconded by Councilman Nichols for an excused absence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's excused. Entertain a motion on a consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Entertain a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, on to presentations. We could almost do the 6:45, I'm telling you. On to item 3A, presentation by Chief Mike Cochran with the administration of oath of office to Officer Dalton Caudell for his promotion to sergeant.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Dalton Caudell. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of Colorado. And the Craig City Charter and municipal ordinances. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully perform. My duties as a sergeant for the City of Craig Police Department. So help me God. Congratulations.
All right, on to 3B, Keen Peterson from RH Borden and Company LLC will give a presentation on the acoustic sewer assessment for the wastewater department.
Okay. Hi.
There you are. Hi.
Yes, councilors. My name is Quinn Peterson. I'm with RH Borden, and that's hard to follow because this is just this is sewer technology, not public safety. That's really cool. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a new tool and a new methodology that your wastewater department is proposing to use here, and I'll answer any questions that I have afterwards. I'll try and keep this very high level. I'll be talking mostly about this tool called the Sewer Line Rapid Assessment Tool and what it does for us. So let's go on to the next slide here. Basically, the way we've been doing sewers for the last 60 years, everywhere in the country, has been we look at the calendar, we say which third, fourth, or fifth of the city do we do this year, we send out the trucks, we clean it, and we're done with it. Let's go to the next slide, please. The problems with this are we're going to clean every piece of pipe, regardless of what condition it's in, and most of the pipes are already in good condition. But we have to clean them anyway because we don't know which ones are which. We're going to see only a portion of the system, which means that there's latent risk in that section of the system we're not looking at this year. We're going to use a significant amount of water. This year, I think we can spare it, but most years, that's kind of a problem. And then the trucks we use for this cleaning are very expensive to purchase and very expensive to maintain. So what we want to do, if we can, is eliminate those problems. And now this tool that I mentioned, the Sewer Line Rapid Assessment tool, gives us the data we need that we actually can eliminate some of these problems. So let's go to the next slide. And we already covered that. This is moving from calendar-based to condition-based. Let's go to the next one. So the tool comes in two halves. We have a transmitter that sends sound down the pipes, and we have a listening end that is listening for that sound. It compares what it would have heard if the pipe were clean with what it actually heard, and it gives us a score from 0 to 10. This sits on top of the manhole, so nobody has to go into a manhole. The test takes 80 seconds, which means we can get through 100,000 feet of pipe in a week, which is about 10 times faster than we have been able to do it prior to this technology. The upshot of that is this will take about 4 weeks. We'll have a crew of 2 people, 1 on each end. They will roll through the town, stopping about every 3 minutes to do a test. And at the end of 4 weeks, we'll be able to give Carl and his team a map of the entire system with each line color-coded red, green, yellow, or black, indicating which pipes need to be cleaned and which ones are going fine. Let's go to the next slide and we can see what we're expecting here. So this is the score that we get. As I said, we go from 0 to 10. The lower the score, the less capacity is in the pipe. What we're looking for here are, hopefully we'll see a lot of pipes in the 7 to 10 range. 7 to 10 means there is loads of capacity in there. We're not worried at the moment about a backup happening on those pipes. Whereas 3 to 0, those are pipes with significant restrictions to flow. Those are the ones that Carl and his team are going to need to get out there and clean. The typical system that we've seen across our service area, which is at the currently 8 states, we're seeing that 72% of the pipes are clean, and about 11% of them are in trouble. Those numbers are actually a little bit higher in Colorado because you have a very aggressive insurance regime here. So, and by higher, that's good. The greens that we're seeing in Colorado are in the 80s to 90%. Your insurance company, CIRSA, has been requiring that cities inspect or clean or do something with a third of their pipes every year. So you have been cleaning a third of 33% of your system. We think that as a result of that, the scores are higher. And here in Craig, I would not be surprised to see the scores being in the 80% range. So this is kind of the technical piece of it. Did you have any questions about this? All right, then. Let's go to the next piece.
I do. Does it assess damage?
It only
I
assesses...
mean, you got infiltration there, I've seen that on your cart, but does it assess broken pipes, pieces of chunks of clay sticking in the pipe, any of that garbage?
It will identify things that impact flow. So if there is a cracked pipe where the crack doesn't impact flow, it will not find that. And so it's a great question. What this means is we will be reducing the amount of cleaning that we do. We'll also be reducing the amount of camera work that will need to be done, but we're not eliminating either one. There will still need to be cleaning done, and to find these kinds of damages, we'll continue to need to do camera work, but we can back off the cadence of the camera work. So instead of, if you're a city that's doing a third of the system every year with camera, we can probably back that off to a 5-year cadence or a 7-year cadence. Some cities are backing off all the way to 10 years on plastic pipes, but that's kind of a technical detail. So basically the deliverable is going to look something like this. We have a color-coded GIS map and a dashboard that goes with it. The dashboard is designed for Carl to easily answer the question, what do I need to do right now? The pipes are color-coded. The manholes will be color-coded. And we can select the different layers of the map and then just go after the things that are coming up red and black. This is a screenshot of it, and you can see on it, it's very clear where we would need to do some maintenance. The green lines we can call them done, and the black and red lines we need to do something with. Do next slide here, and I'll tell you about the other piece of this. In order to run this test, we're going to have to open every manhole in the city. And because we're at every manhole and we're opening every manhole, we can do a manhole inspection because we're already there. So this will be us. We'll roll up to the manhole, take a picture of the top, open it up, take a picture of the bottom, run our test, and while the test is going, we're going to inspect 7 aspects of the manhole and rate them on good, fair, and poor, and also flag that in the dashboard. So let's go to the next slide. This is what we have seen. We've been doing this since 2018, and this is a city that we've done for the last 3 years. And this is in Payson, Utah, a city of about the same size as Craig, Colorado. And we can see their system scores. That's the green. We have this score now called the system score, which is what percentage of your system is green. In the first year we did this, their score was about 68. 68% of the pipes came back green. And over the last 3 years, by them only going after the pipes that were like the 12% of the worst pipes, not touching anything in the green category, you can see the level of improvement to where they're now at 84%. And they were able to do that because they took the work that they were doing on pipes that were green and have just focused it on the things that were red and black and starting to get into the yellow. All right, one last slide here, and then this is a very important slide. Your insurance is provided by CIRSA, and CIRSA is the one that's been driving all of this inspection. They've looked at this and said this is better because it reduces latent risk. It's easier on the cities because it's going to save them so much crew time and a lot of money. So they have said they can do this instead of the rotational cleaning that you have been doing. So finally, next slide, we'll talk about the benefits. We're going to look at the entire system, but we're going to clean a lot less. And even though we're cleaning less, we're going to pull out more debris because the pipes we're cleaning are actually dirty. We're going to use less diesel. We're going to use less water. We're going to wear out our trucks more slowly because we're not going to use them as much. We're going to free up the crews to stop spending time cleaning pipes that are already clean. And we're going to use 80 to 90% less water. So that's a quick overview of what we'll be doing here in Craig. Do you have any questions for me?
I just would like to actually ask Carl what he thinks, because I don't really work on sewers. So, and I know that Carl spends a lot of time doing that. So how do you feel about this?
Well, I think we had a demonstration of this technology, and that's in the award memo. I mentioned that. We tried it on some lines that we knew had issues with roots or other obstructions in the line, and we also tried it on ones that we knew had recently been cleaned, and the technology predicted what we actually knew from video inspection and from cleaning records. And so I think it's a good tool, and we've never really been able to attain the 100% video inspection of the collection system every 3 years as we say we do, because it just is very time intensive to clean that or to inspect that many miles, and it all has to be cleaned to get a good video inspection, or you have trouble getting the transporter up the pipe. So it's just very hard to actually achieve that. So I think that this helps protect us from a loss control standpoint. If council decides that this is something we can do, I think it protects us from a loss control standpoint, and I think the technology is pretty good. We even one of the manholes we tried had some protruding taps, and they showed up as an obstruction. So I think it's a pretty good predictor of what we have in the system.
So, well, the other thing is, when we were going through all this, I believe I remember that our sewage system is built for 30,000 people. So, which obviously we don't have the budget of a city that's got 30,000 people. So I think if we can, if this works well and we can save that it probably would help out, your crews quite a bit. And if we can save us money, then of course I'm for that. But that is going to be one of the differences. My guess is that the town that you showed us the statistics on with Payson probably doesn't have a sewage system that was built for 30,000 people.
It's kind of funny. When they first asked us to come out, we said, how big is your system? And they said 35 miles. And then when we went back and gave them the numbers, we said, you have 70 miles of pipe. So we don't actually, I'm not sure anybody knows how big their system was built for.
Okay.
Are you looking for this to be an annual thing? Does this need to be an annual?
I'm looking for it to be like
Assessment, or would it be
every 2 years probably, is kind of what I anticipate. And I think we can save a lot on fuel costs and you know, the other benefits really do seem to be there.
And then what is the breakdown within the city between clay and plastic pipe?
I,
You estimate that?
I would guess probably about 70 to 80% clay. So, yeah, I mean, quite a bit of the old part of town is all clay. It's mostly the newer developments that are PVC.
It's probably all original.
Yeah, and it has issues with protruding taps and with roots, and, you know, this technology does pick up that obstruction.
Well, we could save money to replace those because I remember years ago Mark telling us that a lot of that, like miles and miles, needs replaced anyway. So we need to consider that.
So one,
I'm sorry, yeah. Go ahead. Derek asked my questions on frequency. So this is like 80-some thousand. Carl, how do you cover this in your budget? You think it's a fair comparison? You're going to save that much on diesel and water and?
I think that I haven't actually tried to do a cost-specific analysis on it because we aren't sure what our system looks like overall, but I suspect that a large portion of that $85,000 that the quote has in it would be recouped by not having that much diesel fuel and that much vehicle maintenance. I mean, jet truck parts are expensive, and yeah, quicker, you know, wear out pumps and things like that, and engines and drive lines. So,
If I hear this right, this is this first year would be a system-wide assessment for the entire. How many man-hours would it take you to do a visual inspection with a camera for the same amount to potentially get the same type of snapshot?
we would need to have an entire another video inspection crew to actually do that.
So in terms of comparable, $80,000, that probably cost you closer to $1 million in man-hours and equipment for years' worth of stuff to do this current staff, current technology that we have internally.
Yeah.
How much does the technology cost to just do it internal, in-house?
the tool is not available to purchase. We don't even own it. We do it as a service we get the device from the manufacturer and we pay them a royalty on every foot.
How much would it cost you to just leave one in this area? If
It
you
would be, well, it depends. No, that's actually a really good question. It's on a sliding scale based on footage. There's a max of $85,000, but I don't think you would hit that here because that's a 6-month. We just leave it there for 6 months and support it. The downside to doing that, and some cities have done that, but the downside to doing that is you have to use your own crews to get it done.
the JS system and stuff that you
You're
guys
not
use.
saving manpower.
Yeah, you're not saving any manpower. You're saving a little bit of money, but it gets eaten up in the manpower. And also what we've found is a lot of cities can't actually pull it off because there's always going to be something coming up. There's a water main break. There's a flood. We need to sandbag. Something that's more important, more urgent than getting the work done.
In your other customers you have contracts with, have they ever reported back to you about how much cost savings they have using this technology versus using what they were doing before?
We've not heard specific numbers, except we were at the special district conference and one of our customers got up, and they're very small, and he said that we had saved them $8,000, but that was a 1-week engagement.
The other thing is the reliability. When you do this, when it says 80% to 90% flow rate, do you have research and data that backs up that the technology is highly predictable in those areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this tool is endorsed by the EPA. There's been a few correlation studies. We did one, a group called the Water Environment Foundation did one that was very well publicized based on the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. Like I said, we've done our own with, following a camera. We see more false positives than false negatives. It's designed to be conservative. So if it has any doubt, it always scores lower, so that we are going to pay attention to a pipe, but it may not be as bad as it says.
I just have one more for Carl.
Sure.
So Carl, currently, how many backups that are city-related and not owner-specific that we have every year?
We usually have at least, I would say, on average, about 2 or 3 that need to be addressed as far as it was a problem in our system.
And they result in insurance claims for the city.
Insurance claims, and some of them very large.
And your customers, after they've gone through your system, or use that as a measurement that they have less backups, or?
Well, we've seen that with the couple of case studies that we've done. We haven't done a deep dive on that. We've been doing this since 2018, and we're only finally getting, in the last year or so, we went from 80 customers to 160 this last year, and now we've got a sizable number. We're going to be hoping to answer that question. Anecdotally, we're being told that they're having fewer backups, but we haven't done data analysis on that yet. The important thing about this, from I think a city council point of view, is the risk management aspect of this. This is accepted by CIRSA, so if there is a claim made, CIRSA will ask, please provide your records and please provide your documentation of your plan. Now, this technology has a new standard operating procedure that goes along with it because it's a new model. And we'll provide that to the city, and you can adjust it and put your own name on it. But basically what it says is, we're going to set a threshold of maybe we clean every pipe that comes back with a 6 or below, or we clean every pipe that comes back with a 5 or below. And you do that based on your manpower and your risk tolerance. You submit that, you just put that in the filing cabinet. We'll come through, and if there is a claim on a line, CIRSA will ask for the records. The record will say, on August 12th, RH Borden assessed this, and it came back as an 8, according to our written policy. We clean everything 6 and below, so they'll say, yes, you've done your due diligence. Alternatively, if there's a claim, there might be a record that says, RH Borden assessed this on August 17th, and it was a 2. And according to our written procedure, we clean everything below 6, and here is the work order saying that we cleaned it on August 12th or 27th or something like that. And they will again say, you have done your due diligence.
Well, CIRSA endorsed it, they must be working for them.
Yeah. So this, yeah.
When you assess it with a number, 6 or below, whatever, is there a frequency of cleaning assigned to that number? Does it get cleaned every 2 months? Does it get cleaned every year? Till the next time you do it?
I can answer some of that, Dave. So, we have areas that we know where there's pipe damage and stuff. Yeah, I know you do, but just for the benefit of everybody else. So, those areas would still be cleaned probably at the same frequency they have been. Those spots, problem areas that we know about that are on either every 5 weeks or every 6 months or every annual basis would still need to be, those would still need to be done. So they'd be included in this survey, but we'd still be cleaning those at that frequency that we found works pretty well for keeping those in check.
Any other questions?
I guess to hit on that, Carl, are the lines that that need to be cleaned that frequently, are those the lines that are causing those 2 to 3 times a year CIRSA or insurance claims, or are these coming from unknown that you knew that there was no issue? And all of a
We
sudden
usually,
there was an issue.
a lot of them are roots that cause issues, and we do know about that. And it wouldn't change our root control program. We'd still be using diclofenac and metam sodium and doing the root treatment and the root cutting. So this would just, verify, yes, you've got a lot of roots in the line because there's flow obstruction, and so we'd know we need to cut those out and make sure we're treating it every 2 years.
The crews would still be spending the man hours to clean and cut roots.
Yeah. There are certain things that we would,
We're just trying to maybe prevent a complete unknown that you have no, that if it comes back at 9 or a 10, you say, oh, wow,
Right.
yeah, glad that was put on our radar.
yeah. And what I expect to see is that when we get the full report back, the full GIS map back, I think we'll see some areas that we thought were in pretty good shape that actually have some obstruction and that do need to be looked at. Because that's really hard to assess, and, 68 miles of collection system is hard to always know exactly what's going on in it, and tree roots can grow pretty quick depending on drought conditions and other things. So I think that, this will give us a good overview.
Well, and I think the other thing is like being able to have accurate mapping and then start a routine cadence, right?
Yes.
And to where, you're more aware of these areas and, any surprises, right? And then once you get that, you can kind of get everybody on like more of a schedule with that and like focus on the areas that need it and not waste time on areas that are coming back as a 9, that are coming back as an 8, when they're not having those obstructions. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's more, I think that the first time is, the first time we do this is probably not the most important. I think that keeping that up, and that's where we're going to see the city starting to save money, right?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
going to be the repeated use, right? Which is convenient for the company that owns and doesn't sell the
Well,
machinery. But
There's a reason, Paul.
yeah,
So, Counselor, that's that's a great point. So, right now, CIRSA is asking that this be done annually. We're working with CIRSA to figure out what the correct cadence is, because clearly, in Colorado anyway, we're seeing that annually is probably too often. But the value, there's 2 value points here. The first year, we're going to find out where to clean and where not to clean. The second time we do it, we can overlay the spots that got cleaned and still came back as bad, and then we can focus our camera work. So the first time is about cleaning, and the second time is about chronic problems.
yeah. Well, and you can, and once you can lay those 2 maps on top of each other, then you're going to see places that need more attention.
Yep.
Right, and then I'm assuming that ultimately that'll help decide where it will help target the piping that needs replaced. Like, and that's what we're going to be looking at in the long run. Because, I mean, Mark was talking to me about that almost 5 years ago, and I know a lot of that never got done. So I think that is, I think that's a big part of it too. So, I think that's it for me. So,
I'm done.
Any other questions?
Okay?
Thank you very much. I
much.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
5 years ago, we never went after grants. Now there's grants. We have money to fix it.
Peter, city manager report.
It works out.
Good evening, Council. Today, we met with the county to talk to the Ferguson Group, Lane Dixon, to talk about an asset mapping project that he'd like to undertake, and he thinks that's going to be beneficial for helping us make a case for repurposing the Craig Station, as well as Trapper Mine and possibly the rail system. So if we could put that into a study that ultimately has a deliverable to show us how those assets could map to different technologies like modular solar technology or hydrogen, green hydrogen production, or how the rail system could interface with maybe some manufacturing company that could utilize those assets. So that's about a 1-year program to pursue the answers to those questions, and at a cost of $500,000 to $1 million, which they would identify funding to help us offset the cost of that. I don't want to call it a study, because studies have a bad word, or kind of a bad word, at least in terms of some of the way we think about what happens to studies. But I think we need that kind of master planning effort if we're going to be able to prove or demonstrate that there's a potential and be able to market that to companies that have that particular need. And I think the county commissioners wholly agree with that. And so what needs to happen, we think, is a joint meeting with city and county to review some of the priorities that we laid out initially, but also to talk about this asset mapping project. And so I think they're putting a scope of work together over the next couple of weeks. This is the Ferguson Group. And they want to come back, schedule that meeting sometime in June with city, county, and talk about initiating that effort to find the funding and pursue the master planning project. So, any questions about that or concerns about that effort?
What? I'm sure that there's like a intended direction with the study, right? Is there like a specific project that someone has in mind for this? Or is
Well,
it just,
There's a couple, to be frank. I mean, they're looking at Trapper Mine and some of the facilities out there, possibly for use in, well, for companies like Lockheed Martin, for aerospace, that kind of thing. Is that a possibility? Or, you know, would this asset mapping process determine that actually it might be more or better suited for some other business or technology and market that company for that kind of thing? You know, we have billion, I don't know if it's $1 billion of infrastructure. I'm sure if you had to build it fresh, it's probably easily $1 billion worth of infrastructure that it doesn't, hopefully it doesn't make sense to totally rip that out and do away with it without anticipating what else could take advantage of that infrastructure. And I think that's kind of the process that they're hoping to achieve.
oh, and for the plant, is that nuclear?
Well, it could be nuclear, could be something else.
Well, I think that the purpose of that study, the way I understood it, was it's also part of a marketing plan. If somebody says, well, you know, we're looking for a particular area that has these particular assets, that mapping would almost be an inventory of, well, we have these type of facilities that are already built that you could use, utilize, modify for X, Y, and Z purposes. For example, Trapper Mine with potential aerospace. Of course, the power plant has turbines, so you can turn it to make power. But we also don't know about other infrastructure, like the railway. Nobody's really talked about how to maybe use that for other types of industries and other buildings even within the city that are kind of underutilized.
And
So,
yeah, and I think this is essential for moving forward. You know, it seems like every grant or everything else you go with, you have to be almost shovel-ready. And this is the first step to getting there, is having this study done and the feasibility work, what would go there. And hopefully, we seriously look at repurposing the power plant, because that's where the bulk of the valuation's at for the city, county, everybody. So I'm in favor of that, and I think we should pursue it,
I think it's
especially if they're going to pay for the bulk of it with their grant work.
Well, that was also part of the discussion, Chris, and that's a good point, is, you know, do we position ourselves for, like the federal levels equivalent to Just Transition, the Ready Rapid system for qualifying programs and funding. They have hundreds of millions of dollars that not a lot of people are tapping into at this point. And this would take a year, but it would be a year well spent.
It beats anything we're doing right now, so.
What are we doing right now?
Nothing.
well, and
Well,
Waiting
that's,
for other people? to
Well,
help
not
us?
nothing. We're, you know,
that's
there's
not
projects
completely
in the
true, no.
works, but this definitely leads to an end result, so.
well, I would say for the power plant, for the actual plant replacement, I think that's true. There hasn't been something there's definitely been
Not with-
a lot of
Yeah, not with the
treadmill
plant.
running.
Yeah.
yeah, if you can say if you have sufficient cooling or you have twice the cooling necessary for this particular process, you know, you can start to make decisions on how those assets are utilized.
Well, I think we're super optimistic to think that 2020 or 2030 is the actual date we have to worry about. I think it's much sooner than that. So I think the quicker we get stuff together and the quicker we start getting movement,
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I agree on that. So.
The other
I'm glad they came up with that idea.
Well, I
Yeah,
think this is
I
kind
think
of
it's a good one. Whittle the Wood,
transition came out. Sorry, Peter. I think that's kind of what we assumed they were going to help do.
Right.
You know,
What have they been doing?
and so they haven't been that was my impression.
well, they,
We're going to help you transition. We're going to have help you map this out, and that has not. So obviously, we're taking it on our own. And
well, they, Frank,
Let's do that.
you're talking about the Ferguson Group?
no,
No, the
Oh,
just
like-
transition.
just transition, all that when they
Okay.
when all that has kind of first was introduced to us.
Right.
That
Well-
was my impersonation of, hey, we're going to hopefully do that for you.
I'd never had faith.
So
I'll just throw that out there.
The Ferguson Group admittedly has said today that in terms of the hours that they are allotted to use in support of our efforts, they haven't used too many. And I think it's time to, that we can kick them in on a project that we can sink our teeth into. So the other thing that we're going to look at tomorrow, and I would invite any council member that could attend a meeting at 11 o'clock at Lottie Simpson. We're going to talk about the feasibility of Loudy being in shape from a groundwater penetration standpoint by the time that the event comes around. It seems that the county doesn't feel that that's going to be the case. They have strong concerns that Whittle the Wood should likely be moved to a different location, possibly the fairgrounds this year. And so we're going to have that discussion out at the site at 11 o'clock tomorrow. So I'd like to invite any council member that could attend that meeting. I think it'd be a good one for you to be present at and have some input on. Jolt, how many have heard of Jolt? We got a few. I sent some information out again today. Ray said most of you were on the original mailing list, but he wasn't sure if everybody was. So that kicks off next Friday. If you need Melanie or Sierra to make you a reservation, they'll be happy to do that and get you set up. I don't think you'll have to stay overnight at the meeting, but if you choose to, I guess that's an option. Nobody's laughing, okay.
Nobody's, yeah. No,
right.
Peter, I don't know.
What's that?
Go to the Jolt meeting?
I think you have my report on a few other items that we kind of recap for you on the solar project, some of the flooding issues, the river, and the meeting with Senator Bennett yesterday, or Sunday. Senator Bennett's office, well, Tom, I'll let you talk about that because I know you attended one of those meetings. So
I can do that in my report. Go ahead. I did not attend your meeting.
the primary focus of our meeting turned out to be hydropower. I think largely it was the discussion in terms of Senator's support for that large capital project that would offer a lot of tax benefit to the county. So we talked about a lot of different things. We went through all the priorities pretty much. At least we touched on them. And they were extremely interested in where we needed help, what projects we thought were coming online. And, so we talked about housing, we talked about the school system, some of the solar projects, hydro, repurposing the power plant, and the potential political opposition to nuclear in the state. At least there's some perception that that's the case, and how that's overcome. And that was, I think those were the primary topics of our meeting.
Peter, are they talking about hydro on the Yampa River?
No,
Okay.
they're talking about that pump hydro.
Okay.
Where you,
So that would be there'd be a lot of loud people about that one, I think.
you think?
Just.
That would definitely get attention.
Peter, could you remind us of that regional transportation study? When is that going to be coming our way?
Well, we're already involved in that RTA study, so there's been a few meetings. I appointed Shannon to sit on that steering committee, but that's probably a year in the making. We probably have another 6-8 months on that study to come up with a deliverable in terms of modes of transportation and what,
Right.
what the taxing
I sort of was under the impression it was this summer, so it'll be fall, something like that, when we get kind of the initial report back.
Well, could be. I'm thinking it was about 6 months into, but we could be a little further into it than that. But a big area that they'll look at, and I don't think they've had too many public meetings yet. They're going to have some outreach meetings here in the county. So we'll be looking at, or they'll be assessing the appetite for tax initiatives that would support an RTA in the valley. And I think that should be something that's going to have to happen. It's going to be a valuable piece of information in terms of how they position it and what the voters think about it. So,
One more question, Peter. What's the timeline on that regional solar project?
so you saw the pictures, and it's supposed to be online sometime in September. And at that time, we hope to have a dedication ceremony. DOLA wants us to invite the governor out, since it was his funding that helped initiate that project. That was 4 years ago. That's how long it's been. Yeah.
With this project's underway finally and being completed this fall, does that potentially open us up for more DOLA capacity grant dollars?
When you say capacity,
I
you're
guess.
talking about for
It-
supporting
it's
personnel?
In the past, if we have received DOLA grants,
Yeah.
we have a lot of projects, they potentially may
Well, that,
award us because we have a stack.
yeah, that's always been kind of true. And as of late, we have a lot of DOLA projects that are underway currently. Carl's got one or two that are just kind of finishing up from last year. That's the collection, or the sludge pond project. And, those things, even though there's not much money there, they kind of weigh into their decision-making process. If you got 10 DOLA projects sitting on your sheet of open items, open projects. So that is a factor. And we have been asked to kind of stand down a little bit on the most recent cycle, the grant cycle. But we'll be back up on the next cycle. Yeah.
So Peter, did you tell Senator Bennett the best thing he could do is cut some of the red tape and about, obviously,
We did
a lot
have
of the projects are still on the table or held up with studies and NEFA studies for installing generators, environmental impact. Why?
Yeah, in fact-
NEFA study for the housing development. These are the kind of things that are holding up projects, keeping us from getting things accomplished, so.
They have that problem even at the federal level, because of all those requirements. They're hiring thousands of people to try and process these. Would you? Okay.
I wasn't blowing my nose or anything. But it-
Anyway, yes, we had some of that conversation, especially about the HUD grant. It was awarded not quite 2 years ago through that CPF funding. And we have been working on the NEPA now for over 6 months. And the NEPA requires that you go to every tribal reservation in the state, whether they're active or not, and get an opinion from them as part of the NEPA process, even though it's the hospital site downtown on disturbed soil. So, you have, those are some of the steps that we have yet to get through.
Wonder why we can't get stuff done. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. Anything else, Peter?
I think that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. Tom, do you want to start us out for council reports?
Sure, I'll try to zoom through it and make it
30
happen.
minutes past the date I was told I was supposed to be done. The time I was
There-
supposed to be done.
There we go.
We did have a time limit on
Yeah, they told me I had till 6:45. and
I
I'm done.
attended the local marketing district meeting on May 11th. The first part of the discussion was about that Datafy set, the $17,000 they spend on, tracking who comes to and from town. And how many people from all over the place. It's a interesting set of data. It costs $17,000 to renew this summer. Sasha Nelson from CNCC did an extensive review and report on that. If you have an interest, you might even get a hold of Sasha because she had a tremendous amount of information about that. The Cold Mountain Ski Joring event did their final report. They had over 400 people and either participants or people viewing the event. It is tentatively applied, going to happen again in 2024. It'll be either the second or third weekend in February. They'll be narrowing down their date very soon, but for a first-time event, that thing was very successful. And in particular, having events like that in the winter for us is important. So I hope that they continue to make that thing go forward. There was a mural request for the drive-in theater. It came from a committee that was born out of the Craig Chamber of Commerce. $43,000 was approved for that project to go forward with that. So that was a pretty major change expenditure at LMD, and that mural is going to be in place probably this year. So that would be something that I think is going to greatly improve the east entrance to our community. The mural that's there now is faded almost into oblivion. It's really hard to understand what's there. The only provision on that is that the structure is found to be sound to invest that much money to put up the mural. So that was the only provision that LMD board put on it. The LMD also authorized the ability for one of the members to go forward and look for a grant to produce a local marketing district website. They have nothing, of course, no front-facing part of what they do. This would be the first time they have something for that. The courthouse will probably be the future meetings of those, the meeting venue for that, just because of technology, the ability for people in the town of Dinosaur to participate and be able to see what's going on, so that they'll probably go to the new courthouse and instead of this chamber for doing their meetings in the future. I attended the Board of County Commissioners this morning. It was a very brief meeting, but the gist of the important thing that happened was that there was, with the $25,000 grant from Tri-State, they have approved 2 contracts with the Colorado River District to begin a leasing water program for augmentation purposes, and that water is going to be leased from the Colorado River District. But again, I think to be clear, the county went to Tri-State and asked for actual water rights, and they said that that is not possible and not with what they would like to do at this time, but they did give $25,000 cash to initiate this leasing process. The initial lease will be a 40-year lease for some augmentation water with a possibility of going for another 35 years after that. So more questions on that, people should contact Jeff Comstock with the Moffat County Resource Department. I did participate in a Yampa River trip last week. It was.
How was Warm Springs?
It was really. I got that coming.
I heard somebody tell a story.
Yeah, there's always a good river story. All right, the trip was May 16th through 19th. The purpose of the trip was to gather agencies, partners, and stakeholders from Northwest Colorado and the state to discuss the transition of Moffat County's economy, build relationships in the backcountry, and explore new recreational opportunities. On the trip were 2 city employees, Travis Sanford with the Recreation Department and Paul Knowles with the Museum of Northwest Colorado. Retired employee Dave Pike also attended, and he was representing Parrot Heads and had some information about the water project, Whitewater Park, that we're producing. We had 2 department heads from the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade. Tim Wolf was the tourism director, and Connor Hall was the recreation director. Sheriff Casey Hume attended and was well received, as well as representatives from the Parks and Wildlife, National Park Service, The superintendent of the park, Paul Scolari, was on board. The Bureau of Land Management and others, including people from the Northwest Colorado Outdoor Coalition that did a presentation to us earlier this year. The town of Dinosaurs sent Jim Evans as their representative. I wanted to shout out that Josh and Megan Vistra with Good Times River Gear made the trip possible and did a lot of the groundwork and made the equipment and things happen. There were 11 boats on the trip. 9 of them were volunteers from the county, and 2 of them were National Park Service boats. There were 26 people that attended. I have the full list here if anybody would like to regroup on who was on the trip. And just to mention, there are 3 kinds of boat operators: those that will, those that are in the process of, and those that have. And I managed to do all 3 this trip. That's referring to flipping a rig. I've operated boats for 50 years, and it finally got me. The last thing I did Sunday afternoon was meet with Bennett's Chief of Staff, Neil Kronsky, and with Jennifer Holloway. That was not in my capacity as city councilor. We were aimed a lot of our discussion at recreation and tourism and that element of what we did. We went over public lands and some of the things that this council has had a letter of approval for looking at the possibility of the Peabody property south of town and that kind of thing. But we've also discussed just in general what the layout and the visitor readiness of this community is for that part of the economy. So that's my report.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. It was Just Transitions that told on you too, just in case you want to know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Chris.
Well, I was out of town for last 2 weeks, but I do have a couple things. Number one, attended the Airport Commission, Yampa Valley Regional Airport. The main focus of what's going to be happening in the future at the airport is the terminal expansion. 24, they're actually drawing architectural work. 25 to start actual construction on the expansion. Numbers keep going up every year, the amount of ridership or enplanements. So the airport is growing. The airport is essential to the valley. So granted, Steamboat gets the bulk of the traffic, but it's essential for economic development to have, a major, well, a major hub, but direct service to major hubs out of your community. They actually are going to do a presentation in Steamboat on the 25th at the, they tore down the city hall, but it's the adjacent building across the street on what the expansion project's going to look like. Earlier yesterday, I attended at least half of the EDAC meeting, City Economic Development, had a presentation on company wanted to advertise our community for an ad in Japan. It's surprised me that Japan is the #1 investor in the United States. I would have said it's China, but Japan is #1.
Trust Japan more.
They had, it's just an ad that we would tailor ourselves with our amenities, our resources, what we have available for, to look, possibly spark some international investment. They're looking at Colorado pretty heavily right now, and so we want to be out there and we'll direct them to the new EDC website. I think EDC did vote to approve it, so maybe we'll see some things, and it will be measurable. They'll have our QR code, anybody on this ad, and then when they scan our QR code, it'll give us numbers, how many people are really following up on this. Oftentimes, advertising is kind of a black hole. You never know what you get. So at least this way, you'll have some tracking numbers. I sent to Peter today, hopefully you got it, Just Transition funding at the federal level. This is not our state Just Transition Fund. This is something that I recently found out about at AGNC meetings. It's a federal agency that provides gap funding in between the larger federal programs for technical assistance. I gave that to Peter because the county's interested in following up on it as well, so hopefully we can work on it and get a joint joint project going. It's up to $150,000 for helping with the technical assistance to help lead us to some of these other grant programs. So that's available. Other than that, upcoming meetings, the 25th, Thursday night, we have the Brownfield Housing Workshop downtown. 531 Spring Outreach. Peter, we still going? CML? Yep, so council members signed up that we can go to that. And then Peter already mentioned on 6/2, the Northwest Colorado Energy Summit, the JOLT that Peter was talking about. So should be good, just to learn out what's available in our area and what we're working on. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Paul, I made my 3 minutes, bud.
It's true.
I don't have anything, but I will say that Tom had the longest quick report I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you're busy. Thank you.
Vicky.
Well, I don't have any committees yet, but I'm sure I will by next week.
I got one for you. I got to cover that.
There you go. We haven't even brought up going over those.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. So I have, however, been out and about in the city since the ice is finally gone. That's been nice. I'm seeing a lot of good cleanup, and I'm also seeing a lot of places like in front of the Cavy that still has a bunch of sand on this pretty new sidewalks. So I don't know how we get rid of that. I'll ride my broom down next time, I guess, and take care of that. So I also hear the axe throwing place is open, but I'm also told you cannot bring your own targets. So that was a little disappointing. And that's it.
Brian, can
I'll
I
have
have
more.
one more thing?
Yeah, you're the airport board.
My seat on the airport commission, by their bylaws, my seat term is expired. It expires after this last meeting. So if anybody is interested on taking over my seat on the Yampa Valley Regional Airport Commission, feel free to volunteer. If not, I will serve again. So by next council meeting, we will need to have an assignment, so.
Yeah, so I think we need to throw that on the agenda for the next meeting, is to do a formal appointment for that one. All right, Derek.
Yeah, I attended planning and zoning last week, and obviously it's in our packet and on the agenda. Just kind of a quick recap of the two topics. First is approval of a conditional use permit for Dave Teeter at 400 Mac Lane. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with his shop, 10,000 square foot shop with 2,400 of it being living quarters. That zone district is community commercial, which has allowed living quarters, only on the second story though, correct, Marlon? But obviously this is a single story building, so that's why they're applying for the conditional use permit. That commission voted 4-0 to approve with no conditions. And the second was obviously the 8th Street development, that the Craig Housing Authority was representing, and same thing there, commission approved 4-0 and gave Marlon, and recommended 0 conditions to this council. Chris, thank you for attending part of the EDAC meeting. I was busy working yesterday, so I couldn't attend that. And then next week I have a Moffett County Airport meeting, which we should be getting updates on the large runway project and if that's going to begin and start and be completed this year. That's it.
Cool. I have a couple questions. Tom, did they say which mural they're going to put on the?
It was, yeah, they did have a rendering of that, and I can get that out to people. It
Isn't it-
was not, they did say it was not finalized.
Because we did
But
the voting on it. I just didn't know. I don't know if I ever heard
The-
follow up from the voting.
The one that they presented to the local marketing district had Echo Park with a raft in the middle of it and a elk on one side and a horse on the other.
Okay.
There was some criticism about that and some adjustments that they were offering up, and it was not the final design. But they did say that despite that, the LMD did approve the expenditure without the final draft.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Chris, quick question. The Yampa Valley Regional Airport as far as the Western Slope, it has to be about the 3rd busiest airport. They said we're ranking as far as
I don't know what the current ranking is, but wintertime, definitely,
Okay.
you know, Aspen is actually, and Jackson Hole are two that are higher.
Really, for
Yeah.
this area.
It should be noted
Commercial or
that
private?
Denver is second or third busiest in the
Third.
world.
Yeah, Denver is, yeah.
Denver.
That's all I had. Open up to public comment. If anybody wants to come forward and speak, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you have any questions directed towards department head, please email them in advance so that they're not surprised.
Okay, this was kind of a question for the city manager.
He's the main department head.
About the meeting tomorrow about Whittle the Wood. Is that open to the public?
It hasn't been advertised, and it's not going to require that unless we have more than 2 councilmen show up.
Okay, and because I've been going to the VFW meetings, I know they've talked in the past about the possibilities of Whittle the Wood coming back to City Park. I don't know if they've mentioned that to anyone else.
City Park, you said?
Yes, has that something that was even remotely considered?
It used to be there, and I think the reason it moved away from there because it hit capacity.
Just not capacity there.
Capacity parking.
Parking, the whole thing.
Yeah,
That's,
we maxed out
That's-
what we could do there.
and I will say, for the axe throwing place, you cannot bring your own targets, but you can bring your own axe. Within reason, as long as it's not.
Do I need to move?
That is all. Thank you.
I just wanted to bring my own target.
No,
Okay.
Anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing nobody come forward, we'll go on to 7, which is public hearing. When you're into public hearing, the first thing is for conditional use permit for Dave Teeter for property located at 400 Mac Lane, Craig, Colorado 81625. Marlon, if you want to come up, Dave, too, you're more than welcome to come to the podium, too.
Yeah, we have Dave Teeter here. He can speak on
Just
his behalf if he'd like. But I can give you kind of a rundown of what we have going here. Yeah, he has a building there at 400 Mac Lane. His shop Action Services there, just sell, come and go. The building's 10,500 square feet currently. It is all one level. He is proposing to put just over 2,400 square foot as living space. Kind of as Derek alluded to, in the past, based on our land use code, if you kind of go down from the commercial downtown area, if it's on a second level, it's somewhat of a permitted use. But since we don't have a live-work ordinance yet necessarily, anything like this or kind of like the camps buildings I've been just bringing as a conditional use just because I feel like there's some buildings that wouldn't be appropriate on, you know what I mean? So some commercial buildings. Do you have the picture there, Sierra? There should be, keep on going. Keep going. Is there ones of the, right there. So that's kind of the portion on the north end there, the blue portion. That's the portion he's wanting to do as a, it will be a 3-bedroom, 1 and like 3/4 bath. So plenty of parking. It does back up to a residential area. As of right now, I have had no comments or concerns other than Tampa Valley Bank resident saying he had no objections to it. So nobody's had an issue. There was 2 ladies that lived behind there that was at last week's meeting, and they were for it too. They had no complaints about it. And so anyhow, that's kind of the lowdown. I don't know if you need to know anything additional.
just open up to anybody who wants to make public comment or any public hearing. We didn't receive any correspondence objecting or just other than what you've reported, so. All right, we'll just go on to the next one.
So Dave, this will get voted on a little later in the agenda.
So we're not requesting a time frame on this condition?
So, in the past,
Right.
in the past, I know we've kind of required timeframes on that, but actually, if you look in the highlighted areas there, that
I'm looking.
it says that council can choose to put a time limit, but
Right.
it's not mandatory.
Is this going to be a rental unit? No?
Owner occupied.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then our next public hearing is regarding Craig Housing Authority 8th Street redevelopment, townhome site plan for Lot 1A, MRH replot number 2.
Okay, I'll start here a little bit, and then I'm sure Peter will be able to speak on Housing Authority's behalf on some of the other details of it, but, Sarah, if you can scroll down kind of to that colored site plan. Yeah, that's it. It's kind of sideways there a little bit. But anyhow, to the left is actually 8th Street, and then to the bottom is Russell Street. So what we have here is we have a total of 20 townhomes, 2-story townhomes, so they're obviously in 4 or 5-plex layout there. So from the north, which like I said, will be coming from the left on this picture. From the north, we're looking at a 24-foot wide alley, so that'll be plenty for a two-way alley. That'll go from 8th Street down toward the V&A to the south and then over to Russell Street. That'll continue as a 24-foot wide alley with gutter on both sides. There's actually one picture in here that the EV Studios completed that allows for a 40-foot long fire truck with a 22-foot axle-to-axle to get around there. As far as that goes, there'll also be an additional fire hydrant on the southeast corner of the property. And then in the orange there, we're proposing 24-foot deep carports, single slope carports, just to get people's vehicles under cover. There'll be 2 parking spaces per unit, which is what our land use code requires, 2 off-street parking spaces, so there's no variance granted or needed for that. We're proposing to put a 6-foot by 9-foot shed in one side of each of those, so they'll have one longer parking spot and one somewhat shorter one. There are some ADA requirements based mainly just because this is getting government funding through the grants, city. We are required to have ADA access to these units just to the ground level. Units themselves aren't fully accessible, obviously being 2-story. So that's why there is a 5-foot sidewalk on the home side of the carports, and there's 2 ADA parking spots in the middle of that alley, one on each side. Like I said, that typically single-family homes do not require that. However, anytime you're getting any state or federal money, then there's some of those ADA requirements that kick in. So this complies with that. We'll meet our 15-foot front yard setbacks, our 50-foot site triangles on the corner. The porches may encroach in that, but they're open porches, so it shouldn't be a visibility issue. And so overall, we felt like this was pretty good layout. They'll have a reasonable backyard and that sort of thing. The only thing we haven't finalized yet, a lighting plan for street lighting and carport lighting, a landscape plan, and we're working on a landscape plan. What I kind of punched in here is a representation of the very minimum based on what our requirements are. And so there will be a planting strip. We're proposing a 7-foot grass area from the back of curb to the 5-foot sidewalk. And that allows for a planting strip there and allows us to be able to keep that cleaned off in the wintertime on Russell and Tucker. Could you scroll down to, that's kind of a basic concept of what we're proposing. The houses will be set back from the sidewalk a hair more than this, and the roof lines are proposed to be slightly different, but we're still finalizing a couple of details depending on what type of roofing material and that sort of thing. So, but overall, that's a fairly realistic concept of what we're shooting for. So this does meet all of our land use code as far as setbacks, parking, sidewalks. We have the affordable housing criteria now in our land use code, but with this development, we really didn't necessarily need it for a planned district or anything, because we weren't asking for a lot of variances from the land use code. So,
Well, I'd hope that the Housing Authority would work with us on landscaping.
they might. I haven't met this housing authority yet. I
Yeah.
told Peter, I said, I keep hearing about it, but I.
Is there a representative of the housing authority here?
There's one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
These are 18-foot wide units. Fading West does 16 and 18 foot. But we feel like it, for these to be purchased, an 18-foot wide unit will seem considerably more livable. Let's see, what else here? Otherwise, I don't know if, that's kind of where we're at on everything, other than what your memo stated here. Let's see here, make sure. We will be doing a replat. Can you scroll down to the replat? Those are the house plans. Back up, or down, there you go. So it's a little tricky to have this totally replatted prior to them getting the foundations in for the homes to be set. So what we are proposing is, right now, we do not have a site plan with signature blocks on it. We will be getting you, if approved, getting you a site plan that has signature blocks and everything. We also will be getting a replat, but this is pretty much representational of what we're proposing. The blue line is the current property line, and the red lines would be what the actual individual would own. Everything else would be common space covered under an HOA. So the front yard, essentially, they would basically own their unit, and the rear yard is what they'd be responsible for. And that's what we're looking at doing, but it's a little tricky since these are pre-manufactured units until we get the final design from Fading West to know if we want those property lines to fall in the correct locations.
Does there have to be an HOA?
That would be question for Peter, so, yeah.
I think we're looking to our housing consultant to help us with that answer, and it looks like that's the direction we're headed.
Gross.
To have the homeowners form a HOA. It's required that we have an HOA under certain, if you have more than 20 units, 20 or plus, I think that's the criteria for.
So we could just cut one out and then we wouldn't be required to have an HOA?
You'd still have some common area, though. But
HOAs have their purposes and their drawbacks.
I think where we have a common, where they have a common envelope on this project, it's more difficult to not have an HOA in terms of.
Most of them that I know just harass old people that have a hard time getting their stuff done around the house and keeping it up to, so I don't really appreciate that. So if we can avoid that in any way.
Not always sure that the HOAs we have are properly managed.
So,
mean-
well, I'm not even talking about here. I'm talking about the experiences that I've seen, mainly older family members that I have, having, the experiences that they've had in other communities.
The other piece about what Marlon is presenting tonight is this site plan is essential in the timeline. We were going to wait until we got a little further along in the site plan discussion with foundations, that kind of thing, but if we wait, we jeopardize the IHOI funding, which pays for that horizontal infrastructure, and we also jeopardize signing a contract for the acquisition of the units, which has a 9-month lead time. And so timing is the critical component of all this. Not that we're going to skip a step just so we can achieve some of those things. If one thing doesn't happen, the other thing doesn't happen.
So Peter, I'm in favor of an HOA just so the people buying the property know what they're getting into from day one.
More rules.
Okay, more rules, but it's also a planned community and a nice community, and you've already had concerns from the neighbors about what are these buildings going to look like and what's the upkeep going to be. So
But the owner will only have control of the actual structure in behind, correct? The housing authority will maintain all the front, correct?
That's right. I'm not sure how we structure the HOA, but we want to have as much control as we can to make sure that achieves the goal of maintaining those properties so that they don't affect other valuations throughout the life, the lifetime of that project.
Yeah, and I think it was worth noting at that P and Z meeting, there were some nearby neighbors that came and were opposed to this at the beginning, I believe. And then once the HOA was discussed, that they learned that they had to be owner occupied, some of the details, I think they left.
That's right. Owner occupied, you can't lease it, you can't rent it. It's,
That was what I was
yeah.
gonna
And, with Thursday, there is a presentation also, so hopefully more of those neighbors will show up.
I did send letters out, we sent letters out, there in April, for everybody within 300 feet of the property, which is our requirements for a site plan. And, we did, the only negative, comment we got by email, and they showed up at the meeting, was by Mr. and Mrs. Rosenbaum. They, that was their concerns, is whether or not they have owner occupied, and, we mentioned the HOA, which I haven't heard anything since, and so those were the only.
Marlon, they seem satisfied with your response on that, I thought. I mean, that was what they were looking for, was information.
I agree.
So with regards to the site plan, is there anybody in the audience that wants to make public comment as far as the public hearing portion? So we can go into action items and have further discussion. Sure.
Plugs gonna be in those carports?
That's part of our solar ready thing that we have to comply with the state, so that's what we're proposing, is to have the way they're gonna do the panel to where we can run. The state requires that we have it ready, which basically means conduit infrastructure in, and the capacity has to be there. We don't have to physically put the charging units in yet, but the
2023,
yeah, but the capacity's supposed to be there for it. So
Dave, you might want to hold off on your house and purchase one of these.
No, I don't want any debt.
We can run an extension.
Probably wouldn't
cord.
qualify.
Run it from the Yampa building over and charge it up.
if there's anything too much online here, I was gonna have Peter speak to the timing of grants, and he's done that pretty much, and so, we have one other grant that we're waiting for the shoe to drop here for, that's really gonna kind of be a big ticket item, and this approval also is one of the little bit of a qualifying steps for that. So it's a competitive grant, and they don't really like giving money away unless they know it's a project that can be, put a shovel in the ground as soon as we get the funding type of thing. So, that's why there are a few outstanding things on here. I think overall you have the gist of what we're shooting for there. Details we'll have to hash out.
I think the Housing Authority might have to convene in June sometime. We probably need to get a pretty thorough update of what we're looking at.
That makes sense. All right, we'll move on to 8A, and this would be the award of a quote from, we're leaving public hearing, going into other business. Award of quote to CNC Technical Services LLC for $15,910.60 for completing equipment for police fleet mobile radios. Chief Cochran.
Thank you, Council. In the 2023 budget, Council approved $29,000 to complete our mobile radio project. As we got into this year, we soon realized with a good problem, and that's being full staff, that we were short 3 handheld radios. So we were able to purchase those for $7,700. And then got the quote for the 4 mobile radios we had originally funded, and received the quote back at $15,910.60. So that will leave us a surplus in the budget in that line item. So I'm requesting that you approve it. This was a sole source item from CNC and Steamboat for the Kenwood VM6930. And that will complete our entire fleet with mobile radios. Any questions?
All right, I'd entertain a motion on the approval of the bid.
I would make a motion to approve the quote from CNC Technical Services LLC for $15,910.60.
Second.
Motion by James, seconded by Councilman Nichols. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. On to 8B, award of a bid for acoustic solar assessment from R.H. Borden and Company LLC in the amount of $85,000. This was the presentation we had. Do you think there's anything else we need to know?
I don't think so. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we budgeted $90,000 in '23 for that. So the estimated cost of this work is 85, so a little bit less than what we put in there.
Maybe if we tip them 5,000, that piece of equipment falls off of a turnip truck.
Gina, Gina wants you to talk into your radio there, please.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Gina.
You ready for a motion?
I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the acoustic sewer bid assessment in the amount of $85,000 to R.H. Borden.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Nichols, seconded by Councilman James. Any further discussion on acoustics?
One last question, Carl. On the quote, it says final cost based on actual footage assessed, final cost based on actual number of manholes assessed. Is this fairly conservative quote-wise, or you think it's going to be right?
Yes, Quinn mentioned that in his presentation. I think that it's going to be, should be less than that 85,000 actually, is what I would anticipate. And if my memory is correct, I believe it also does not evaluate lines greater than 15 inches in diameter. And so our main trunk lines that are 36 inches in diameter would not be part of that too. So there are some of that would be excluded.
Any other further discussion? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. On to 8C, approval of condition use permit for Dave Teeter, property located at 400 Mac Lane.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Dave Teeter located at 400 Mac Lane.
Second.
Motion by Duran, seconded by James. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's approved. On to D, approval of Craig Housing Authority 8th Street redevelopment townhome site plan, Lot 1A, MRH replot 2. I'd entertain a motion on it.
I'll make a motion to approve the 8th Street redevelopment townhome site plan.
Second.
Motion by Nichols, seconded by, who? Did you second it?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. Councilman Heiser?
Councilman
Heiser. Councilma'am Heiser. That's what you want to be called, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Council person? No.
Now I got to get used to your initials to put on my sheet here. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. We have no discussions. Public comment number 2, if anybody wants to talk a second time or whistle or play a song. Don't see anything. Staff reports. Chief Cochran.
Thank you, Council. I'm going to try to be very brief here. I know we're a little over on our allotted time. You have my report. Most areas were down in the month of April. Overall, our incident count was up about 6% from March. If you flip to the second portion of the report, where we broke it down by instances, there was one number that I wanted to point out to you, and that's on the last page, and that's traffic stops, because we've had in the past a lot of questions on the ability to work traffic and be present out in the community. So in the month of April, we had 150 traffic stops. And I think that just goes to the fact that we are now approaching full staff. A week from Friday, I attend graduation at Flat Rock Academy for our last 2 cadets, and they'll come back and start the FTO program, making us officially full staff. So we hope and anticipate this summer that we're going to see much more proactive response to some instances and through the community. But I will tell you, this summer has started off with
quite a hefty increase this month in calls. Any questions I can answer for you on the report?
All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Back to you, Carl. Wastewater and water.
So on the water department, I think everybody that is a City of Craig customer probably has got the mailing regarding the Consumer Confidence Report. That is a requirement of the state because we did have the cross-connection control violation for not meeting that compliance ratio that we've talked about before and seen a notice about, and then we had some reporting violations as well. Some of those in our control and some not. For instance, on lead and copper, the lab didn't get us the data back in time for us to report. So that one-page notice went out with 3 methods to access those on the web, and then if you have any concerned folks that want a hard copy of it, they are available here at City Hall and at the water treatment plant. And water production for April was a little over 1 million gallons a day, and I'll keep my report short too. You have the report. There's of course a lot of activity at LCAD, a lot of monitoring of things that were going on with the structure and the flood, potential flooding and things like that. So other than that, I'll just go on to the statistics. So line locates were up quite a bit in April, and then I'll just point out again that if you look at the number of shut-off notices that we deliver versus the number of customers that actually get shut off, is very low. We do spend a lot of time delivering those notices. So it'd be nice if we could get people to skip that step. That would be helpful.
There's your notice.
So,
Now you get a
wastewater.
notice when you turn your water on and there's nothing flowing.
Yeah.
We noted.
Well, and the notice.
That's your notice?
Yeah. And we could discuss that more, but yeah. For wastewater, we treated 1.56 million gallons a day of wastewater. So the flow is up from our usual of around 1 million gallons, 990 to 1 million gallons, due to I&I issues with all the lowland snowmelt and water that I've discussed before getting into the collection system. We saw higher flows, and we're actually concerned about permitted capacity due to some of those flows when everything was really wet, and since then flow's been dropping back off. 69 man hours to do 92 locates, and we cleaned 1.95 miles as part of our annual cleaning, and then another 0.75 miles of the weekly spots or trouble spots. We had 4 collection system complaints, 4 backup complaints, 2 of which were not in the city main. The first one seemed to be at a protruding tap, and us cleaning the city main did help, even though the city main was flowing when we arrived on site. And another one that was potentially on our end was a free drop manhole where a service line dropped directly into a manhole, and then the solids build up in the bottom of the manhole, and so we don't allow that in our public works manual, to that type of construction. Everything, moving forward will all be a drop manhole where it goes in at the bottom and doesn't just drop up and build up solids. So that's something that we've addressed in the public works manual, and so unfortunately we do have a lot of those free drop manholes in town, and so they do create potential problems with toilet paper and rags and things getting in the bottom of the manhole. So does anybody have any questions on the water or wastewater reports?
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just one thing I wanted to point out on the housing project. Marlin and Sierra have a really heavy workload already, as most of us do, but theirs is right up there among the top. And they've taken on a considerable amount of additional work as a result of this effort. And I just want to thank those two people for all the work that they've done to support this project and keep it moving along. It's been substantial.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's why we had pizza for dinner. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Make sure we also sweep in front of the cabbie sometime this week.
you know, the
Nice.
the fire department used to, well, when I was on the fire department, usually about this time of year, we'd all go about one Sunday morning, we'd go take the fire trucks out and wash all the sidewalks. I don't know if they still do that.
Looks really good, but
I don't know if they still do that or not.
Well, we actually used to do that, but then, there were some liability issues of sandblasting some cars and.
Yeah, so they,
And some issues that, and then it's getting harder and harder manpower right
yeah,
now.
I figured so.
City's been out
Yeah.
doing it, yeah.
yeah.
They cleaned up my sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of town, well, that part's hard because there's no ownership to it, so nobody goes out and takes care of it, so
Right.
the rest of us
It's the
take
only
care of
one I
it.
saw, the only part.
Yeah. All right, anything else, Peter? And we do appreciate your guys' hard work. We know that.
Sorry
Yeah,
about the
good
pizza
job.
party joke.
We keep on,
I've grown accustomed to them, so.
we realize that we keep on creating projects. You guys have to do all the work. We just vote yes or no on it, and then you guys have to
Yeah.
see it to the finish. Yeah. Peter gets the money, Peter spends the money, and then tells you guys what to do. So, any closing remarks or informational items? All right. I would take a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Don't you my cup?
You can either leave it, Liz will wash it, or